Now, before I go over my 10 best albums of the last year, I want to go over a select few of albums, honorable mentions if you will, that I know some people are going to get on me about. And I just want to let you know that, hey, I appreciate you and your album listening ideals, or whatever. I'm gonna have a stroke. Albums that I want to mention: Triumph and Disaster by We Lost the Sea, Prince's Originals, Lizzo's 'Cause I Love You, Bandana, Norman Heckin Rockwell, Baby on Baby by Da Baby, Purple Mountains, Atlanta Millionaires Club, Blood Indication, All My Heroes Are Cornballs by JPEG Mafia, I by Bon Iver, So Much Fun by Young Thug, Charlie by Charlie XCX, Best of Rat's Nest by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, The First Glass Beach album, and finally, Nothing Great About Britain by ya boy, Slow Tie. Now at number 10 on this list, we have Ghosteen by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, which for me, this album feels almost therapeutic in a sense, because on this album, Nick Cave comes in with a lot of grief and uncertain emotional stability. For a record of this caliber, I feel the tone and instrumentals are very well placed. There is not a single badly performed track. We have these larger-than-life but understated instrumentals, very ambient in nature, especially on the title track. Nick Cave comes across lyrically on this album as extremely poetic and straightforward. The feeling that this album gives me is an incredibly soothing but melancholy experience, mainly because of the context surrounding it. I'm not going to explain the story, but if you've heard of the story, Nick, I hope you're doing okay. At number 9, we have Danny Brown, You Know What I'm Saying. Danny Brown comes across as the cool dad that everybody in the neighborhood seems to like on this album. Danny brings us back to a much more classical rap blueprint that has a lot of personality and humor. Danny becomes much more old school. He's not taking himself too seriously. The album is really easy to enjoy. It's lighthearted in tone, with features that are really, really entertaining. And while the pen game underwhelmed me on the first listen, I feel like the more I look at the lyrics, I just bust a gut laughing. Good shit, good shit. Danny, I'm proud of you. Number 8, Junior by Corridor. Junior is an incredibly fun album, from front to back, with some incredibly solid playing and band coordination. There is a very energetic aesthetic, but also has a very casually cool vibe around it. The lyrics on this thing, if you can Google translate them, or can even get a hold of the lyrics in general, have this sense of self-deprecation thing going on, which is always fun. And the guitar riffs are also incredibly bouncy, incredibly groovy. There's just something about this album that just gets it, and I'm excited to see where Corridor goes next, as they are on the Sub Pop record label. At number 7, we have Ginger, and with this album, it's the second most depressing album, but this one doesn't feel depressed for the fashion of it. Rather, there's an actual reason to be sad, just like Ghosteen, as a response to the Amir Van situation, which I'm sure you've all heard at this point. Some of these tracks, like Sugar, feel like summertime jams, while in comparison, Dearly Departed is a beautiful confession of every perspective in that situation. There's emotion, there's effort. This album is depressing, this album is heartfelt, and while it may be sad to see Brockhampton, they may never reach the levels of a Saturation trilogy. That's okay, because they're in completely different places in their lives. It's okay to be vulnerable, and that's what our boys are doing here. God bless. Jesus Christ. Number 6, 1,000 Gecs. Now, this album may not be for everyone, but honestly, in my heart of hearts, this album can't help but at least crack a smile in me when I listen to this album. Like when I listen to an album like Money Machine or Stupid Fucking Horse, there's so much self-awareness and personality behind those high-pitched vocals. I just crack a smile and just want to laugh. This album, aside from being incredibly experimental, almost unlistenable at points for like an average listener, can be incredibly harsh, but also has a lot of charisma behind it. It's like something about these vocals that I just can't help but admire. And then there are points where this album goes completely off the rails, like on 800dB Cloud, or any other instrumental transitions. It just feels like I'm stuck in a really slapstick-based cartoon. Again, this album is not going to be for everyone, but goddamn, it's so much fun. Like, these kids are fucking insane. Number 5, and I might get flack for this, But when we all fall asleep, where do we go? 2019 was basically the year of Billie Eilish, excuse me. For someone so young, this album is so strange and yet so catchy. Billie carved out her own niche of quiet yet a bold fusion of electropop. It's such a unique blend too, that in hindsight may have been a long time coming. Billie manages to stand out in a field of Lords and Lanas because this record has a lot of personality, grade A production, and such unique futures ahead of it. So to quote Ronald McDonald, I'm fucking loving it. Number 4 is Denzel Curry's Zoo, an album that I could just not get enough of this year. Zoo is an album with one banger to the next, combined with freestyles that honestly feel super impressive to me. Sure, you may brush it off because it doesn't have the same staying power of a Taboo or even a nostalgic 64, but you can't deny that this album is incredibly entertaining and loving and crafted like everything else. From tracks like Wish to PAT, you can't help but bang your head. With number 3, this is a little of a basic pick, but I really enjoyed this one. It was Ariana Grande's Thank You Next. And it's almost weird to think that this album came out like 2019. Truth be told, I was never the biggest fan of Ariana during the earlier part of the decade, or even on like the show Victorious. I was always more of an iCarly stan, or a Drake and Josh stan. And there were a few key tracks that I enjoyed, but I couldn't get myself into it. But with this, Ariana has made herself stand out as one of the true pop stars at this moment. Like, she actually feels like a fully fledged pop star. This is one of the most enjoyable pure pop records I've heard all year. Not only do I feel these tracks are pure and coming from a mindset that is... Let me rephrase. It's coming from a mindset that needs to vent because it's so vulnerable. But a solid majority of these tracks are incredibly catchy too, well produced and well performed. Ariana shines as a vocalist on tracks like the Dreamy Imagine, or on tracks like the subtle title track. It's absolutely amazing. Please go listen to it. And just because it's a basic pick doesn't mean like you can't enjoy it, bro. Number two is Weyes Blood, Titanic Rising. One of the most beautiful and emotional albums I've listened to this year. Really, ever, really. There's something so heavenly about it. Maybe it's the luscious production, or the vocals so filled with emotion, but it only excels because of that. Every song makes me feel like I'm in this dream world, but the lyrics present us with a different story, as I feel Weyes brings us with a world that is heavenly, yet incredibly flawed, because on tracks like Everyday, Andromeda, and Wild Time, they are soft and sweet, yet provide a realistic view of the world, emotionally grounded. Just a beautiful record. Something I know I will be listening to for years to come. And at number one, you've probably guessed it if you've seen the review, but it's Tyler the Creator's IGOR. And while I said I was feeling a strong 9 to a 10, it's only a strong 9, but that doesn't mean it's not fucking amazing, because keyword being almost perfect, but I feel like it's the flaws that make it an even more enjoyable experience, because that's the point. IGOR is one of the most realized concept albums I've ever heard, and maybe it's because of the realized songs, the quirky and synthetic chipmunk vocals littered all around the record, or fuck, maybe even the features. But everything was just so meticulously crafted and put into its right place. The performances are incredible, whether you're talking about tracks like What's Good, or Gone Gone Thank You, or New Magic Wand, but there's not a single track where there wasn't heart put into it. And this album displays such a vivid picture, and I'm here for it. I am here for it. Put me in, coach. Put it in me, coach. Pause. Alright, those are my 10 records of the year. I want to make sure... Pause. Yeah, I said everything I wanted to. And here's to another decade of great music. And I'm going to be listening to that new Mac Miller album. Watch out for that review coming soon. Cheers.